motivational speakers, I got bored and I couldn't sit still because, this is a small rural town. And this is actually the truth. I was wondering why I was behaving so badly. And by that, I mean, I kept moving around, making eye contact, making jokes. I'm like a kid. And I think that the being in Bible school and also being on these meetings, I'm used to conversations where you learning something with almost every sentence the person says. And now I just get bored with normal talking. I get so bored, I just cannot open my eyes, and I'm doing little things and I'm fidgety, and people say they will not invite me again.
Well, good for you. I think today is going to be no different. Hello, Julianna. I am
Hello.
so excited to have you here. Oh my goodness.
Yes. I'm hearing all of your beautiful South African accents, and I was like, I have to send this to my beautiful, this beautiful, she's I don't even know how to explain it. She's a beautiful friend and soul in my life who lives in South Africa. And I was like, Christelle, you have to join.
That was one of the beautiful things as we connected at Union last year. And I think maybe just for some of you, hi Tammy, nice to see you, Julianna. And what was so beautiful for me at Union, it was really like God has connected me with people, and there were so many synchronicities in every conversation. There were so many people, but yet with everybody who connected me with, there was some kind of there was. And when I met Julianna, she was like, you are South African. And I'm like, yeah, what gave that away? And she was like, your accent. And then I think we kind of brought it down that you lived in Centurion to where I was, to very close where I was living. And it was really just so amazing, the amazing synchronicities in that moment. Like, yeah, we're supposed to be connected.
Yes, I know, because Centurion is so small. I'm like, of all the places.
Yes.
Yeah.
And especially at that time, if people ask me, where do you stay? I was like, Joburg, because it's the easiest. Trying to explain to Americans where Centurion is, it's just pointless. But you were kind of Centurion. I was like, really? Somebody on this knows where Centurion is? It was really, amazing.
Yes.
Well, we're gonna kind of, I think some people are still going to join. This is being broadcasted on the Dream Beyond Facebook page, and I'm also recording it, so it will go on YouTube. But Julianna, I know, and this is maybe not the best introduction you've ever had, but I know that you have an incredible understanding about the power and the energy of water. And that is really, I just want to kind of give you the platform and say, please talk to us, teach us, show us, teach us. We are really, I'm slowly but surely starting to learn how to engage with the elements and really see how they help me manifest. And I'm just ready to learn from you today. So
yeah.
Please go ahead.
It's interesting. My journey with my journey with coming back home to my relationship with the water and letting her be my teacher and inviting her to use me as an instrument here in this physical form has been reignited probably about a year ago now. And since I've been doing more work in the water, so I work as a coach, a conscious leadership coach and a consciousness coach. And my mission, my conviction in this lifetime is to bring love into business. And so to awaken and guide what is that language of love in business, to bring love and humanity back into the workplace. And the reason why the workplace is where I continue to be invited and sort of called to go into is because it's one of the largest places that we gather every day in community. and it's in place of service, but and it contributes so much to what is happening in this world, this physical world that we're living in. And it has in many ways become very devoid of love, of spiritual principles, of all of these places. And so, although it can feel in some ways a lot easier to sit in my spiritual circles of friends and communion, of faith, of church, it's in the place of work where we are serving and creating things in this world where I believe we can really create the greatest change. And so as I've continued on in my journey of that work, of my coaching work, of continuing to find ways that I teach the language of love in leadership and in the workplace, and integrating it into different workshops and programs and stuff I create for organizations, I have been feeling this call to the water. And so I connected with a friend of mine who was dating a woman that was doing this work called Watsu. And he says, yes, she does this water therapy. And I hadn't been to the ocean and like to a large body of water. I live in a prairie province in Canada. And so I was so just aching for the water that I made an appointment with her. I was like, just put me in the pool. And she took me through this Watsu session where she fully immersed me, and like we're moving through the water. And it was like, by the time I got done the session, both her and I, it was a mystical, beautiful experience for both of us. And I said to her, I need to do this again, but I don't actually think I'm just supposed to receive it. I'm to learn to give this. So then I began my initiation into learning and becoming, I still have a road to go. It's 700 hours worth of training to be able to receive your full certification in this work in the water. But after spending, to even receive the certification, you're spending like 8-hour days in the water. So just being in the water for that long of time. And so engaging with the water, being in the water, learning how to work with people in the water, heightened my awareness to the work that our frequency has, and primarily the frequency of love has to create shifts and changes, and what happens when we put that on the water. And so my work in the water felt like more of a remembering than a learning again. And even my teachers and stuff were like, Julianna, it's like, you've done this before. I said, I feel like I've done it before. So it really felt like a remembering in that sense. And so, so since then, even in my trainings, when we're, just learning it, and I would have experiences where I've got somebody, where I'm giving somebody a treatment, I'm holding them in the water, and I'm kind of going all over the place. But the power of this work is that it's not spoken. It's a silent experience. And so often it really brought me back to that understanding that there's not a lot we have to do. And it's in the silence. It's in this language of love that is a frequency that radical transformation can happen in an instant. And I have experiences through my life where I had like radical changes happen in a moment. And I can share more about that as we continue in our conversation. But I've had experiences where people, you're holding them in the water, and then they're just in one session, they're just tears come straining out of them. And just being able to hold them there in this frequency of love in the water. And then after that, like in the same session, laughing, like hysterical laughter almost, and then just holding them in it. And so it's taught me how we can hold people without having to do anything, and just rest in that frequency of love through whatever they're going through, and allow it to pass. And so water flows and carries with it, but it doesn't, if it stops and indulges in any area, it will either, and if there's not life flowing through it, it either the things in it will just die if it goes stagnant, if there's no flow happening through it, or it will create more destruction. And so when we allow whatever is coming up, whether it's tears, whether it's just hysterical laughter, without trying to manipulate it or do anything, it continues to pass, carrying through it with it, whatever it's supposed to go. We don't even have to know what the tears or the laughter were about. And it's like it just cleanses and clears everything. And so at the end of a session, I've had work in the water where at the end of a session, people have been struggling with PTSD for years and years and years. And I always start my sessions with a prayer where we speak into the water, because when the water listens to us and to the frequency and the energy that we put on it. And when we speak into the water, we change the molecular structure of it into something that is like healthy and vibrant and life-giving. And so when people will come into often we've found ourselves in a place where the energy that we're putting into the water within us, the water outside of us, has become of the lower vibrations, those of fear or shame or guilt or worry or doubt or all of these things. And so when I start always by a prayer. I speak into the water. I ask, what is it that you're desiring at this time? And then we connect into that desire, and we just go into the elevated frequency and the knowing that that already exists within all of us. We are whole by nature. We are whole. There's nothing actually missing. And so when we speak into that and we speak into the person by the end of this session, so they'll come in saying, my desire is to feel peace. I've struggled with PTSD for, the last 10 years, 15 years, whatever it had been, trying psychology, all sorts of therapies. And at the end of this one session, they come back and they look renewed. It is the most incredible thing. And I'm speaking to God and Jesus, and I'm in gratitude, thank you for letting me hold your children, for serving them. And there's at some point in the session where it's like they physically look like they've changed, and they come to looking like the child version of themselves again. And they come out at the end of this session, and they look renewed. They look totally different. And this one instance, this woman said, it brings them into the embodiment of that peace. Other words are embodiment of the safety, embodiment of love. And it's an experience. Once we've felt the embodiment of that peace, she said, I have worked for years to experience this feeling I'm feeling right now. And I've just achieved it in an hour because it was there the whole time.
But Julianna, what is it about water?
It amplifies.
What is that? I know that we have the biggest part of our bodies consists of water. I think Julianna is on this call, and she kind of introduced me the first time. She said, when I go to the shower, the water speaks to me. And I was like, nah, you are calling from very far now. But now I've kind of learned that when I kind of need to calm down, and when I need to get the voice and the spirit of God speaking to me and I'm struggling to hear it, I run to the shower, because I know that the water does talk to me. It does calm me down. So what is it in water? What makes water so powerful? What is that's kind of just
Water amplifies the frequency. So when there's a lightning storm out, you don't want to be standing in water, because it will amplify whatever you put on it. And so when we connect into the water,
hold on. I think we all need to just think about that for a second. It amplifies the frequency.
Yeah.
So if I get into the shower and there's a certain frequency in me, the water will amplify that and kind of bring it up so that it become a thought.
You could think of it that way. So what I heard you share is that when I am, when I'm feeling that, like I'm wanting to change something, or I'm really just wanting to connect into, I forget the exact language you use, but wanting to really connect into that feeling that I want to go or wanting to have, I'll go into the shower. I'll just now, and I can, and then you're like, and it does change something. So you went into that water with an intention of what you're wanting out of it. The water listened, it amplified it, and it shortened the gap between it. You used it as a tool. You used it as something that it will shorten the gap to what it is that you're the desired state you're wanting to be in, what you're wanting to create. And so we use that as an element that is, I mean, we are majority water. And so when we put ourselves in the actual element of water, so if we have the ability to get in the shower or take a bath or to go into a body of water, we can use that. Or we can also go into the void. We can go into that meditative state. We can go into a place where we can enter into the water, and it will do the same thing for us. Because what we do when we enter into the void of the element of water, we then are entering into the body of water that is us. And that is the oneness of Christ that lives all around us. So that's one of the things that I've begun to now take my work in the water that I have experienced and witnessed. Things happen to people that they have, I mean, the most amazing, people have worked so hard to try and like solve this thing or get rid of this feeling or heal from this thing. And they'll come into the water and in one session have experiences that they've tried years to deal with. And you don't have to go into the water to receive that. We can do the work on land by entering into by entering into the water, the body of water that is us, and then speak into it, connect into it. And when we begin to understand ourselves as that element and as those elements, it like makes us that more even like superhuman and supercharged. It's like we don't even know who we are. We are the ocean. We're an ocean walking around, just like, so yeah, I get it. It's so remarkable. Did that help like answer?
Yeah, I think it does. But maybe share with us a little bit, because like I said in the beginning, I'm just learning to see how water responds to me, how the wind specifically is responding to me. Well, actually all the elements, I'm kind of having fun with all of them and like, yeah, but you know, your journey, I think you shared a little bit about it, you know, right in the beginning. If you say you are the ocean, how did you get to that? How did you get to that understanding? And how does that kind of roll out in your life now? If you go from, you know, coaching session to work to being in a relationship, how does that impact the way that you're thinking and just operating in this natural realm?
What it supports me, because I think I heard someone share this on a podcast recently, and they said in Islam, the word for human is forget. And as humans, we forget in our human form, in our humanness, we forget. And so in my holiness, in my divinity, in my soul, my spirit, I am the ocean. I'm the vastness of all of that in my Christ. And so it supports me to remember and to connect into the vastness of the limitlessness that is us, that we are the makeup and the oneness. So there's those that do really extensive studies on the water that is in us, they talk about the spinal, the consistency and the structure of the spinal fluid that goes up our spine is almost the same as that of the water in the ocean. And so when you look at the structure of it, of what lives in us, it actually is that close to that what's living in the ocean. And so so we can connect into that like vastness, the limitlessness of who we are. And so to me, when I come into that remembering, when I remember all of those things, it supports me to just feel like all of the things in me are opening up and coming into an expansiveness, and then connect into the flow that is invited to us in every moment. And if I start feeling like I'm blocked or I'm being constricted, then I can use these tools like connecting into the water, going into the water. There is some days, especially when I'm working on creative projects, where I'll take a shower 3 times in a day. And it will help me. It'll be like, I'll get to a certain point and I know that I'm like either getting blocked or I need to shift into a new part of the day. It's like, I'll go and I'll take a shower and I'll like reset, and then I'll go again. And I say that recognizing like, how privileged are we that I can just go turn on a tap and like, that water just comes out. And so like, again, I do say it is why meditation and the work that we can do by entering into those states is available even when the water's not. But even when we're drinking water, like I've got a thing of water here, even when we're drinking water, we can be so much more intentional and mindful of it entering into us and speaking into it. And when we speak into it, it changes the molecular structure of it into that higher vibrational frequency, and it becomes like an elixir. And it supports us. Then not only are we speaking to that water that's outside of us, contained now in this here, we then are actually speaking into the water within us, which then creates harmony. So I've actually started swapping out the word healing for harmony, harmonizing, because what's really happening, healing is an outcome of harmony. And so when we come into harmony, when the water comes into harmony, it comes into its truest state, and by default, everything is whole. And so there is no healing that's needed yet. We just come into wholeness. And so sometimes when I find that with clients or even with myself, when I am focused on the healing and something needed to be healed, I'm still focused on what's not good or what's broken and so there's still a very, like, it's subtle. But when we get into the subtleties, it's that's where we're coming into the mastery. We're still holding on to the past, to the thing that wasn't, that we're not bringing forward. And so, yeah. And so when I come in, like when I'm working in the water or I'm just using the element of water in the work that I'm doing, you come into a place of just the truest nature of what is, which is by divine, whole, and love and joy and bliss and all of these things.
Wow. So if I'm hearing you correctly, and I'm going to kind of take it a few steps back, but we in this group have been talking about trauma and purpose and all of that. Can we use water? Can you use water and you spoke about it earlier, but to heal trauma? Because what I have an understanding is that water has memory, and you kind of just touched on it now, and we can maybe dive a little bit deeper into it. But because we are so much water, that a lot of our memory is in the water in our bodies. Can we reset that memory, like speaking into the water that we drink, and then heal the trauma or shift the trauma or bring harmony to that? How do you use water to kind of shift that?
So it's interesting. So I'm curious, when you think of that, water holds memory. So when you first heard that, and so anybody on the call here listening, did you go to a place where you thought, if it's holding memory and I'm working, one of the things that's something I'm attending to right now, to creating harmony around, is trauma that I've experienced. Do you go to a place where you're like, the water is holding the memory of the trauma? I'm just putting that question out there. Or do you go to a place where the water is holding a memory of my wholeness, of everything that existed before, during, after, through, that has no trauma? And the love and the essence of everything that is being gifted around that, in it, that we were blind to, that we couldn't see, that we didn't connect it to, that we were shut off from, as a result of that trauma. And so that's the place that I guide people into, and that I hold in my frequency, is that memory of wholeness, that memory of who we are at the in our spirit and our soul, that is in perfect harmony. And so that's the memory that we're connecting into. And what I offer is that what the water then can do is, and what it does is one of my teachers that I follow and connect in with too is Father Richard Rohr. And he talks about, we go through a stage where we have order, disorder, and reorder. And so we go through this cycle. And what the water does when we're in it is especially in the work when we immerse fully into it, is it disorientates our senses, everything in our physical structure and everything enough that it can come back into reorder. And so it's almost like like it feels like sometimes like you're being put in a washing machine. You're like, just put it in, we're going to clean it all out and we're going to bring it back into reorder. And so I think that's what, if you've been working in meditation and going into the void, it's the same thing. We go into the place of nothingness where we have no connection to what was or what is. We come into this pure state. And the sessions I do are somewhere around an hour, and it's enough time to be able to have been removed from any of the senses that you're used to on land, that it's like it's the only thing I can say is it like discombobulates, it disorientates everything enough that it can come back into a reorientation, that trauma isn't there. And there can be Dr. Joe Dispenza says, when the memory of a past situation no longer elicits an emotion, it now has become wisdom. So it doesn't mean that the memory won't be there anymore, but the emotion of it has changed. And so, and that's where the frequency lives. The frequency is in the emotion, in that charged energy. And so the energy around it is different, and we don't have to, it doesn't impact us in a way that it might have in the past. And so I think that's where it's like, you can now be in the embodiment of love. It doesn't take you out of it. You could even see the trauma and be in gratitude and feel, because it has become a pathway. It has given us the opportunity to know our greatness and our limitlessness, because we've moved through, we've moved through what we thought we couldn't, but we've discovered we're just not that. We're not the trauma. We're not all of this. We're so much more, and we get to experience ourselves as that. One of the ways that I've heard describe what a mystic is a mystic is one that has experiential knowledge of the spirit. So they don't just know about it, but they've experienced it. And so when we come into those things, we now have experiential knowledge of the spirit, which is what a mystic is and does. So
Experienced. That's cool. I like that.
Experiential knowledge of the spirit.
We actually know what we're talking about.
Because you have experience of it. You just don't know about it. You've actually moved through it and have, something to share. So in the way that this woman that I was working with, that, the PTSD that she was dealing with, and being able to experience an embodiment of peace that she hadn't felt. And what that offered, and what I offer, is that we don't have to dig and work to find out. Like I said, we don't have to always know where the emotion is coming from. We don't have to dig for it. We don't have to have it can just go away. It can just be washed away, because we don't live in that past. We are living in this now moment all the time, and we are creators and moving into the creation of the future. And so it can just leave. And that's where we can come in to this present moment and just live into this now frequency, creating into each now future moment. And it happens. It's like, it's so beautiful And it's like, once we've given ourselves permission to let go of it all, and to just let go, and to be open to that experience, it becomes available to us because it's already there. It's like, oh, it's been sitting there all the time. I can go into it. Yeah. I
Wow.
think the other thing is, I would say, what is the other thing that I've learned from working in the water, and witnessing what's actually happening that supports people to have these experiences. It is that there's nothing for them to do. They fully surrender into the water. They surrender into me as a guide. And I always say, like, when we are somebody that's guiding and supporting somebody in any moment, my prayer at the beginning is always a thank you, like a thank you to the water for and me surrendering to the water to use me as form. And I think that's what we do as Christ, as water, is that we surrender and just are in thanks that that gets, that energy, that love gets to find form through us, to be in service, and however it's asking, it's needed in this moment. And so I tell people, I'm like, at some point I might disappear. The intention is that I just become water. And where this is cross contextual is, we just become love. We just become Christ. The physical body and person that is Julianna, that is this body, just goes away. And I become whatever it is you need to come. And I've had people in sessions be like, Julianna, it was like you became this like old Baba, like a grandma. And like, I become another entity. I become something else for them. I often become whatever it is that they were healing from. So I've had men in the water that have had held on to a lot of past sort of struggles or trauma around the women in their lives, whether it was a mother or grandfather or other relationships or whatever. And coming into this space where what the way they've described it is being able to be in a place where there was an energy that was a balanced feminine masculine energy. It was a grounded, and I'm not even saying that it was because it's not even me, but a healthy feminine, and it supported them to come into an entirely different relationship with the thing that they were having trauma with. Like, it's like they met a different version, a different reality that is the future that they're going into. So they created that. You know, I came in and did the work that as best as I could to be an empty vessel so that it could be filled with whatever it was needed for them. And so that's one of the gifts that that's where I'm like, when I say we are the ocean, it's so that we can just continue to be filled and serve in every single place that God puts us.
Okay, I think that's amazing. But how can you maybe just guide us in, because most of us is quite far from Canada at the moment.
Yeah.
But how can we engage with water? How do we engage? How do we, if you speak about water, that it can shift the trauma for me. How can I engage with water? How can I just sit and to be quite very truthfully honest now, me talking to a glass of water, my religious mind do not want to go there.
Yeah.
My religious kind of group, I grew up in the church and all of that is like, you talking to the water? Nah, that kind of feels. But how do we bring this? It's kind of a random question, but how do we bring this water thing into Christ and out of that new age kind of mindset? How do we bring it to a place where me as a Christian, me as following Christ can feel like, yeah, this is okay.
Yeah, I see someone put in the chat that Jesus spoke to water.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm just going to share what's coming up for me. So what I'm hearing is the Eucharist. What is the Eucharist to you?
Are you asking me? Or is this
Yeah.
a general question?
Well, it could be a general, anybody that wants to answer, but I'm curious. That was just the image that came as you were asking that question was the Eucharist. And in the faith I grew up in, which is the Ukrainian Orthodox faith, as part of the church service and the ceremony, there would be a chalice that was prepared and everything, the praying into it, the work into it, everything. And so and then that would be given to anybody that wanted to receive it, or depending on whatever the rules were in that faith of, what went into that. But I'm curious, like, what is the Eucharist? How would you describe what that is?
I don't know, Renee, you are off mute and on camera. It looks like you want to jump into this conversation.
Hello, Juliana. My name's
Yes.
Renee. I'm from South Africa. Thank you for what
Yay.
you're saying. It's quite a mind shift that we have to do, and it's powerful. What I want to, I've sometimes, when I've drunk from my water bottle, the water starts bubbling, and it's not fizzy, it's water, just plain water. Then it feels like it's this living water that's going into my mouth, and it's like I've always like pondered on it. So this is quite profound what you're saying now. Well, when you're saying the Eucharist, are you implying the body of Jesus or Yeshua, not necessarily a religious Eucharist in the religious part? Is the representation of what is being given? Is that what you're asking?
Well, see, this is what I love about these conversations, is because we receive everything from the questions. That is the thing that we're wanting to ponder on. So I love where you're going with that. It wasn't where that wasn't yes and no, both and. Yes, further back, that was where I'm going. So you were there already. So you're like, I got this. Yeah, this is what's happening. The image that was coming for me with what Marc-Marie asked was the actual like Eucharist that would be offered at a church service. But I think where you're going with it is guiding us, that is guiding the conversation as well. So I was seeing the physical Eucharist, the thing that we would identify when we think of church.
Well, that would
as
be
what we might have received as the Eucharist if at church, and that was given to us.
That would be baptism, and depending on the church, it would be sprinkling. Depending on the denomination, it would be the whole underwater. But I think that was the connection that I have with water in the church.
Yeah.
So in the context of religion, it was a form of supposedly the body of Christ, but it was more in the religious context. And but if it's in the form of the body of Christ,
this is my
it
dad.
is the body of Christ.
Hi.
I'm just on a call. Yes.
I brought that stump.
Okay, thank you, Dad.
Put it at the back.
Okay, this is live and on Facebook. So
Hi, Dad.
Yeah, this is Dad.
Hi,
He's
Dad.
delivering a wood stump.
Nice to see you.
Okay, nice to see you. Have a good day.
Hey, you too.
Bye. Oh, he's so funny. Yeah. I could hear footsteps, and I was like, there is nobody home. And I am sure that maybe it's the Spirit, because we're talking about the Eucharist, but I don't think Jesus is upstairs. I mean, he's pretty close, but.
Okay, but this is now very interesting, because just as you asked the question, still, if I'm thinking about baptism, if I'm thinking I was baptized as a child and then again as an adult, yet the connection there is still separated.
Mm-hmm.
In my mind, I'm still not. Did I become one with the water? Yes, I did. And was I raised up out of the water? Yes, and all the symbolism. But in my mind, it's still not yet. But I became one with the water, if it makes sense. It was still water and me, because that is still the mindset that I have, especially when it comes to the church. So anyway, I'm just rambling, but there's still in my mind separation. So how do we bring that into oneness?
Yeah. I'm curious if anyone else has any thoughts on that. I think, if anyone else has any thoughts, feel free to put in the chat or come off mute, so that I'm not the only one answering everything or speaking from my I'll speak from my experience and what I've witnessed. And it sounds so simple and maybe still sort of like tricky, but how? You choose to. Like, it's a choice. We choose to surrender into it. And every single experience for me, but it's a choosing to on a deep level, almost on the exhale. It's like, it's an exhale, it's a choosing to on the, I don't know if that makes sense, but that's what's coming for me.
That's powerful.
Yeah. And
because in general, trauma is attached to the inhale.
yes.
And it's in the exhale that you're normally in a relaxed position if you exhale, I think. Am I understanding you correctly?
Yes. And then but isn't it, someone else here is going to be able to quote this or speak to this better than I will. But the word, the ha, it's in the that it's that breath, it's that word, that is love. And so it's a choice. And Teresa of Avila, she is my favorite, probably my favorite Christian mystic. All of her teachings can be summed up into 4 words: think less, love more. So what I hear, think less, love more. And so and so when we want to keep going into the thinking because we want to figure it out, my invitation is to surrender, to choose to. And with the choosing to, sometimes the experience is immediate. Other times we keep choosing, we keep entering into the water. One of the things that as I've deepened my relationship with the water is that is around John the Baptist. So John the Baptist, people didn't just go to the river or to the water to be baptized at one time in their life when they were born, and they went through this special ceremony, and where it was a thing we would go back to regularly. Baptism and going to the water was something we would go to regularly because we are growing and changing and coming into newness all the time. So, and essentially we could, every morning when I wake up, I am new. I am brand new. Everything is available to me in the newness of this now moment. So if I have a John the Baptist, which we do, if we want to adopt that, I am my John the Baptist. You are your John the Baptist. So many of the mystics that that I have studied and taught, like especially the female ones, they will have stories of, I went to the river and baptized myself, because Christ is in us. And so we have the authority to do that. And so when we come into that wholeness, and so now maybe even reconnect. So some of these conversations help to reconnect to the intention, the power, the sacredness, the reverenceness of the moments when we wake up in the morning and wash our face, when we go into the shower, or we take a bath, or we just wash our hands, or we choose to make it a part of our daily ritual now that every night before I go to bed, I wash my feet. I cleanse and wash my feet. I anoint myself. And those moments, those experiences invite us into that remembering, invite us into that experience of engaging with the water, invite us into that experience of being able to think less, love more. And so the choice goes, I am choosing. My desire is oneness with this water. I have no idea what that's even going to feel like, who I'm going to be, what's going to happen, because when the water starts to melt on the top of the mountain, it doesn't know what ocean it's going to end up in, how it's going to serve along the way, how it's going to be consumed and renewed. It doesn't know. So we don't either. So we come into the wonder and awe of just what might be. And so we surrender into it and we say, I want to, I'm choosing to. And then we just start to find out like where it's taking us. And so for me, the Think Less, Love More has been something that I keep up, I come back to, because we inevitably want to go into the thinking. And so it helps me to go into, I don't have to know, but I can choose and I'll be taken. I'm going to find out. I'm going to find out what it feels like a little bit more every day to be in that oneness of the water. And that's why one of the things I always like, everybody will begin to have their own knowing of how you're being invited to engage with the water. And it might be different this week than it is next week. So for whatever reason this week, talking to the water is not the thing. You don't need to talk to a glass of water. But for this week, for some reason, every time you go to wash your hands, you just find yourself saying, I love you. And that just came out of nowhere, and you just start doing it. So everybody will be invited into their own experience if we listen and allow ourselves to be taken. And then it's like this beautiful mystery that we live into. Yeah.
Wow. I just want to. So Jolene said, everything not actually in Christ anyways? And when we become one with it, we become what we want. So yeah, that's true. And Leah said, we were in our mom's womb in water before the earth exists, water above and water beneath. And that's why we can engage with it. So there's such power in that. Anushka, I want to come to you, but Marilyn, you were off mute as well. I think you wanted to say something.
I was just remembering when Renee talked about the breath. And when we exhale, the yod hey, the hey is the creative force that changed Sarah. She became the hey, S-A-R-A-H, the hey. So as we breathe out, we breathe life from him into that situation. That's what I learned about those two, or those letters, yod hey, vav hey. The hey is the release of life.
Yeah.
Before I go to Anushka, we have water from we have bottled water, and we have water from the tap, and we have water from the rivers, and we have water from all kind of sources. And depending on who you ask, certain waters are holy and certain waters are not.
Yes.
What water do we use?
Yes.
Any water?
I love that question.
Speak with what is holy and what is not? How do we choose what water to engage with?
Yeah, I love that question. So, if we want to go again with love and compassion and grace, we can hear what people say and that there's water that's holy and not holy and all of that. And at that to that person who is in that feels like truth to them. So we can let that be. When we know that all is love and all is Christ, there is no water that is not holy and is not whole, because everything is whole. There is nothing inside of me, even if I am got a chronic pain or something that's going on, there's nothing inside of me, that there is no cell in me that does not hold the full potential and is not whole by nature. It might have stuff going on. And so, but what happens is the structure of the water changed according to whatever has happened to it. So there's I can share it wherever this is being shared, a link. I'm actually sending it out tomorrow. I have an article I send out every 2 weeks. And I'm sharing this one video on it about water that I'm sending out tomorrow. But what it talks about is, so water in nature, flows very freely in all sorts of different ways and shapes and this and that. Water that comes out of water in nature isn't contained by these types of spaces. So this water has taken the shape of this now, which is what makes it so awesome. And if it just sits here dormant after a long time, its structure is going to change. So I could say it's less holy now at some point. Its frequency and vibration has changed, but it doesn't mean it doesn't still hold everything in it to be holy water and to be of the highest vibration. I could change it in an instant. We can all just start talking to it, praying to it right now, and it's going to change. But the reason why we say that is, so the water that shows up and comes out of my tap in my house has gone through maybe a treatment plant. It's gone through it's traveled out of the earth somewhere very free, and it's been moving through these right angle pipes. Water in nature doesn't move in sharp angles and like these right angles. That doesn't exist in nature in that way. And so the molecular, by the time it gets to my tap, the structure of it has changed. And so it's why we might say that water is not as healthy or this and that. You want to drink your whatever water. Plastic can, has a lower vibration to it. So if your water has been sitting in plastic, but here's the thing about how powerful we are, is we can speak into it and we can change it in a moment. We can just change it.
And
It's not
restore it,
bound to that.
back. And restore it back to
Restore it back to its
original.
original. We can create the reorder.
Oh, wow.
It had order in nature. It went through disorder. It came to us, and we get to create reorder. It's not bound to that which it was. We get to change it. And so that's where with the term that I've been using in sessions that I'm holding is, we are limitless beings of love. We are limitless beings of love. And anything that engages with me, with you, passes through our vessel of water and is renewed as a result of the frequency of embodiment of love that we are. And so when we come into that, we have the power to shift and change anything that comes into our space. But if I just stay annoyed at the fact that I live in this world that has to come to my pipe, and this water is crappy that comes out of my tap, and man, they can't only fix this, and then I'm just contributing more. And that's fine too. If I'm in that place for a few days, that's okay, because we'll change it, and somebody's going to come along who's in a better flow than me at that day, and they'll change my water, and then we'll come into harmony.
But isn't that exactly what we're creating? So as long as I continue to, like, the water coming out of my tap is yucky, it's going to be yucky, because that is exactly what I'm creating.
Yes.
If I continue to speak that over the water, if I continue to speak that over myself, then that's what's going to come out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where this really comes to, so much of the work that I do in the water and on land with the water and all of it is about harmonizing. And so one of the Gospels, and I feel a very strong connection to Mary Magdalene and the Gospel of Mary. In the Gospel of Mary, she speaks so much about us and the teaching of us coming into being fully human and fully divine. And ultimately the harmonizing of the instrument that is in us, that is us. So our responsibility, our ability to be able to come into harmonizing, to attuning our instrument, to coming into that, so that we can come into attunement and come into relationship with all that is around us, whether the instruments around us are in tune or not. It doesn't matter. But if we're coming and just wanting everything around us to tune us up all the time, it won't work. And so it supports, and everything impacts each other. But where we are able to really create change and shift and be like water, be the embodiment of love, be Christ, is that the things around us that are coming to us that we might find challenging or violating or whatever, that they no longer, they can pass through us without disturbing us anymore. That they can move through us. They aren't judged. We have space. They can move through us, and and continue to pass through us without disturbing us. And when that happens, we then have the opportunity to support that thing outside of us to be able to come into change as well. And so that's the practice, or the thing that I've really been paying attention to and noticing happening sometimes. Just noticing, oh wow, this is happening. That thing that used to disturb me doesn't anymore. And I didn't have to focus on the thing not disturbing me. I just got to be the thing that I really am, and become so connected to it that this can just come now. I'm not having to work to make it not disturb me anymore. It just doesn't. And then there's times that something does still that happens. And so then that's like, oh, okay. That's where I get to like come back to me and keep, keep evolving and growing. It's like all of that is a gift, because it's like, oh, that's where I get to go and kind of where my next sort of area is that I get to kind of grow and evolve and attune more into.
Wow. Anushka, you wanted to say something, ask something, do something.
Okay, Julianna, this is very good to hear. I live in a drought-stricken place, and we have no water in my town. And water and even plants that you used to think, what's onkruid in English? Plants that you need to get rid of. I'll never think about plants like that ever. If something is growing, it's life. My question is, sorry, I'm new. So if you don't mind, if I'm not in water, but using the water element, like the card, I want you, if you don't mind, to take us through exactly the steps. I say this, I do this, and because I get confused if I'm inside an element and my intention is, like, for example, I have a person in my family that's been very traumatized and therefore they have memory loss. I would like to address that. When I'm on the inside of the element, do I address the element or do I speak to God inside the element? I'm not sure who I should address. If you could just like give the right words, in which way are you supposed to talk once you're inside?
Well, I'm going to share what I do, and then I'm curious where that guides you in whatever is coming to you, because I am me and you are you, and we each have our own way that we are going to be invited to engage and to be. So my process won't be your process. And the way that water works and the way that water teaches it flows is when we surrender to it, we don't have to think anymore. We fall into the flow of like where you'll go into that element, you'll go into that process for yourself. And something in you now is going to just going to start talking to God. But instead of pausing, interrupting and asking yourself, oh, is this the best thing I can do right now? Should I be doing this and that? And pulling out of the moment to go into your humanness, to thinking, you're going to stay in it and you'll keep flowing with God until God guides you. And then all of a sudden you're like, you're just water and you're engaging with the water, and you'll stay in the flow of it without any questioning. There is no right or wrong if we are fully present to whatever the experience is bringing us to. And so in any of the experiences I've had and other people who I know have talked about, as soon as we get into thinking when we're in that space, we interrupt the flow of however we're being used in that moment. And so the energies that we want to be in that space. So I heard that you share like when I'm working with somebody, I pay very close attention, and I go in that I don't pay attention to the thing that it is that they're asking for, like, or like what the trauma is. I don't pay attention to the trauma or to whatever. I simply go into the embodiment of love and joy and peace and and I just keep basking in that, because the water knows, the love knows, God knows exactly where that's going to flow for that person. And the frequency that takes them there, invites them into that, is this frequency of joy and love and peace. So when we rest in that, it's like we become, when I say we're the ocean, you are the ocean of that frequency that then envelops them, and it goes all around them. So now they're bathing and being baptized in that love, that joy, without having to be in the physicality of water. It's
Yeah,
the
thank you.
essence of what that water is, which is love. And so you can create that. You can create that. And so I guess without giving like the step, it would be to not think, to play with it, to like, and even the element of play, like I think you were saying earlier, Montmany, like that you were like, oh, I've just been playing with the elements, like it's so fun. And I'm like, that's the energy. It's that, because it's that childlike energy. When the most beautiful thing I see with people is they'll come out of us and they'll be like, at some point I became like just this child, and I can see like a smile coming on their face at some point, and it's like they're taken back to this newness where that doesn't exist. So that would be my invitation for you to sort of play with and to go into and to see what that feels like, to go where it goes. And the piece of all of it is that we find our experience in ourselves, that expansiveness, that radiance, that love. And when we are that, you are the water. You are the water. And every time you're in their presence, you are an ocean that's just engulfed them with love and Christ and all of that. You just become it. So in this drought, like, space that you live in, even I'm so curious for you, like what this will be like and how this, I'm imagining myself there with you now. And it's like, and all of the ways that you might be guided to become that, where it's like, even the way when you think about, you're like, there's no drought here because I am the ocean and I can nurture and feed everybody with these waters. Like, it'll be so, like, I'm so curious what you can do with that and where you might take that and how that feels for you. So as I'm sharing that, where does that take you? What comes up for you?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking you.
I understand what you're saying, and I'm excited to try it. I have a very strong connection to nature, and I go into the place where the dam is, into like a nature reserve, almost every day. And I'm quite stressed because the baboons are coming down from the mountain, and there used to be a puddle and they drink from it, but there's nothing left. So that concerns me. But now I have some new ideas. I'll be praying about that and see what I can go do up there. But I have another question. Can I ask one more question? Okay, I have another question. I have had horrific nightmares all my life before the word tsunami even became known. I have these dreams of massive bodies of water coming, threatening. I dream it over and over and over again. I've had these dreams since maybe I was 10 years old. What can I do to change that? It represents some type of overwhelming fear, but it's water. How can I work with those dreams to change them, please?
Do you write at all? Like, do you journal or write at all?
Yes, I do.
What was coming is that in your waking state, to engage with that the power of that water and have a dialogue with it.
Okay.
To have a dialogue with it in your waking state, as if that tsunami, that power of that water is an entity of its own, and talk to it.
Okay.
And the way I'll do dialogue in writing is I'll be like, how do I pronounce your name again? Nuka?
Yes, that's fine for American. Anushka.
Oh, no,
but
I'm
Nuka is
good. Give
fine.
it to me. How do I say it?
Anushka.
Anushka. I can say Anushka. I'm
Yeah.
Ukrainian too.
Anushka.
Anushka. So you can say, and you can call that, well, maybe you have a name for that water, but you could say like great body of flying water. I don't even know what you would call it. Tsunami, like this is Anushka talking, and I'm here and I'm listening. What do you have to share with me?
Okay.
You
I'm
can
gonna do it.
to it what your desire is. I desire to know you. Teach me.
Okay.
And let it speak to you. And just you get to ask it as many questions as you want. And my what I will speak into you now here is that you are safe, you are whole, you are loved, and you are powerful. I know and I can see you are one with that water, and that water is love, but it's trying to get your attention clearly. And so now in the power state that you are, in the groundedness that you are, you get to pause and say, I'm listening.
Okay.
What do you want
good.
to tell me?
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
See
Appreciate
what
it.
it has to say, and then you'll know what to do you'll know what to do. Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you so much for asking that question and sharing that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. It is, God gave me a while back, and I can talk about this really for hours, is how money is energy. How money is, it gets an expression in the notes and the coins that you use in different countries, but in itself, it is just an energy. In itself, the idea is an energy, and we give value to it. And just as you were speaking now to Anushka, I just kind of, I kind of knew it, but it just dropped again. And I kind of want to just say it out loud. It's like, water is the same. It is energy that is just getting expression through a certain element in this natural world. It is getting expression in either the rivers or the trees or the, the air, or in whichever way it gets expression. And then it ends up in a bottle like this. But this is still just energy. And we have the power to change this. The same with the wind, the same with earth, the same with fire. It is all energy that is just getting expression in a different way. And the beauty of it, as Anushka was, as you guys were speaking about it, journaling is amazing. But I just realized that we spoke about breath a week or two ago with Susan Norrie, just because of that breath, we are so powerful. Our breath is so powerful that we can change the energy of any of us. We can change this energy. We can change. We don't have to be afraid if it's in a bottle or in a tsunami. We do not have to have fear, because we have the power to shift and change it. But anyway, any other comments or questions? Thank you for that one, Anushka. That was really powerful. Renee, you are off mute. Yes.
Thank you. Can I ask you, when I was in the sea a few years ago, the crowd that we were with, we were 3 or 4 people, and they said, let the water carry us. Now I've had 3 times that I nearly drowned. Twice in the Sea of Galilee, and once when I was a child in the pool. Actually 4 times when I was a kid. I dropped head down first into the water, and a strange kid rescued me at a holiday place up here in Suez. So I've got that memory that's sitting in my body, I suppose now, the trauma of negative experience with water. So my fascination's always been to run towards something that I'm fearful of rather than to turn away. But yet there's something that stops me, because that day they said, okay, surrender, abandon, like you said, and lie on your back in the water. Yeah, there was resistance. I tried my best, but my legs sank the whole time. And I said, I want to trust you, but I couldn't, because I thought it's going to drag me into the deepest sea and I might drown, was my thought. So it's like, how do you do that surrender? Because there was the opportunity. I'm in the sea was calm, and I felt like a aliveness to the water. If I now think back, there was like, it's almost like, can I say, human hands were starting to form to hold me, but it's not human hands. It was the water wanting to do something, but I couldn't surrender that moment. It's like my mouth was saying, I surrender, I surrender, I surrender, I surrender, I surrender, but my legs sank. It's like just wanting to bring me up straight the whole time, you know? So what do you say to that?
Yeah. Well done. Like, wow. You went and you lied there and you did it. And you kept going, and you observed the whole thing and you're laughing about it. And so I think it's like, sometimes we get a radical change and sometimes we keep going. And so to me, it sounds to me, I'm like, keep going. Like, you're going to get another moment to meet the water, and another moment to meet the water, and another moment to meet the water, and continue to open up on land. When we're on land, which we're, I mean, when I say we're on land, we really are living in this vessel of water, and we are surrounded by the cosmic womb of water that is in everything and all thing, giving us life all the time. So, when you open up to the possibility, the potential, and continue to in whatever way you're guided to, know that you will, the next time you meet the water in whatever experience that you're being invited to meet it in that level of surrender again, you are not the person on that day that you were the last time you were in the water, or the last time, or the last time, or the last time. You just aren't. And so we come into that newness, we come into that willingness. And so when we can remember that and live into that in our day-to-day, when we come to that moment again the next time, you just are not the same person. And so yeah.
Wow.
And that's been the work I've done in the water with people, has given me more of an understanding of that than anything else I've done. Because every single time someone comes into the water with me, it's heightened my awareness around all relationships and around the work that I do in coaching and on land, is that every single time someone comes in the water with me, whether I've seen them before or not, they are brand new, like I've never known them before. I meet them in the pureness of the truth of who they are in that day, not who I knew them as before, or something someone else has told me about them, whatever is true, because what their capacity is going to be, whatever they're going to need on that day is different. There have been days where, that one time where this happened with me, where I could go, I can stay underwater for a very long time. So when I'm taken underwater and someone's giving me a session underwater, I can hold my breath for a very long time, longer than most people they've ever worked with. And then this one time I couldn't hold my breath as long because I had to go pee. And if you have to go pee, you generally can't hold your breath as long underwater. Well, the person giving me that treatment treated me like the person I'd always been before. So they were wanting to keep me under longer, but I kept having to come up, and they were a little bit confused. And it was this moment of like, we are different and new, and different experiences coming up every single time. And so it's like giving, and that we give that grace to everybody around us. And then know that for ourselves. And that's why we know, like, God's going to keep giving us those moments, again. And then after that moment that you're in the water and you feel that total surrender, and you're like, it might not even feel like might be feel like it was the way it always was. It could be, and then from there, you're going to be, after that moment, you're going to be given something else that you'll just surrender into. But it's about coming into newness. And so I think that would be that's what's coming for me in that, is that we just give ourselves that reminder, just so that, yeah. I think I think I got the point there, but it's so good. It's so good. Yeah.
I want to wrap this up. I see Dolene is off mute. So Dolene, I think you have one more question. Then I have one more question, and then we will see if there's like 30 seconds left. But Dolene, go ahead.
Thanks, Mark-Marie. Julianna, I just want to say thank you so much. And I really honor what you bring on the table tonight and everyone. But for me, it's like a big, big answer, because I started talking to the water, and I'm still have to learn a lot. And I'm doing massages and I'm speaking. It was just coming to my heart mind that just spoke to the water into the person. And while you was speaking tonight, I get a question in my heart that asks her if she ever experienced a fragrance in the water.
There's no, like while I'm under the water, or just when I'm working in the water?
While you're working or under, any time, maybe it's just something I had to put in your heart. I don't know.
It's interesting because as you're saying that, there wasn't an immediate like, yes, I've had the fragrance, but then I'm listening, I'm like pausing, I'm like, oh, there's been moments and sessions where I feel like there's a scent that comes along, like or something like that. And but I feel like I've had a client before that has said that it's like they felt like they could smell flowers or something, like there was scents that came up. I'm going to pay attention to that now. Thank you for sharing that.
That's a pleasure. And I also think that you will experience like a sound, like a music note, that you definitely will experience more and more. I just want to share it with you, but thank you for your heart, that it meant so much for me tonight, really, to come on this. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I think it was you that wrote in the chat, it's like falling in love again. Is that what you shared there?
Yes, it's for me like falling in love again.
That's it. Like that is such a beautiful way to share it. Yeah, that's what we are invited to fall in love again every moment. It's so amazing.
Yeah. Thanks very much, Julianna.
I absolutely love that, once, and I'm learning to, like I said in the beginning, learning to engage with the elements, and how wind and the mind is all really connected with each other, and fire and passion. And you just said it right from the start, is water and love, they just go hand in hand. It is that emotional heart feeling. It's that is, those two things can't be separated. If we flow in water, we flow in love. And, that's where the healing. Yeah, that's so beautiful. Helena, you are also off mute. I was wondering when you were going to say something.
Hello, thank you, Juliana. I thought I'll share. I had some encounters, and most of them was before the luminous cards were released. I many times go just right into the depth of the sea. And the few times I actually encounter humans as they were busy drowning. And then I just hold on to them. And a few times when they were busy dying, I released the fear. I took the fear out of them because they knew somebody was with them. And then they passed on. And there was at least 2 people who my body warmth kept them warm and alive until we could go up to the surface, and they were rescued. So I had a few encounters where I become water and I hug the human being back into life, or back to release the fear. So I thought I'll share that with you, and thank you for today. A lot of things what you said is amazing. Actually,
Oh,
everything you said, sorry.
oh gosh, it was that is so, was that something, I want to make sure I heard that, was that an experience that you had in like a spiritual experience, or was that a physical thing that happened to you where you actually like supported the physical person?
Spiritual.
Okay.
Spiritual.
Oh, that is so beautiful. That is so beautiful. Yeah, I think it just speaks to the oneness, and however that is inviting you to, however that's mirrored in your physical life, of how, and I love, my gosh, I love South Africans. I love the way you talk when they're busy dying. Oh, I love you guys so much. Yes. And so, but that is so like, I love that. I'm just receiving that completely of how, because what I heard and what you just shared is there was no judgment between whether you died in the water today or you were born in the water today. They're both expansive, and they carry us into whatever that next thing is that we're moving into. We had a conversation, I was having a conversation the other day, and we were talking about in the spirit form, and I've read instead, we continue to evolve in our spirit form. So when our body dies and we are only in spirit, we aren't in a form yet, we continue to evolve, is what I've been taught and what I've heard, and people who have connected. And so it's like either way, whether you kept them warm to bring them back up to the surface, or you guided them and kept them to know that they weren't alone as they passed on to the next, moved on to the next. It's like just creating this embodiment of safety and acceptance and love in whatever the path is. And I believe that's what God does. Like that's how we, and one of the things that people have shared with me after being in the water with me is they're like, I imagine this is what God feels like. Imagine this is what love is. And I think that's when you shared that story to me, I'm like, oh, that is what we're invited to do. That's how we get to support, is that unconditional acceptance, safety that we create in the space that we're in as Christ, this body of water. Yeah.
Thank you.
What I've experienced, I think once or twice, is as we were going into the void, and learning how to go into that space almost, is one time God really kind of said, okay, but how about trying to go into the water? And so instead of going into this deep darkness, I went into going into the water. And I think I had that once, and it was like, wow, we can really do this. We can really become one with all of the elements. And that I haven't practiced that enough. That was a one-time experience for me, but it was really just, mind-blowing. All right, Anushka, one last question.
Okay, sorry, I just want to share a very quick story. I don't know if everybody knows who's Kobus van Rensburg. That is Kobus' mentor out of South Africa. He's passed on. But Kobus told me this. I just remembered the story when she was talking about Julianna, about the drowning. Kobus said he was giving a service, and in the service, he was suddenly split. He was giving the service, and at the same time, he was standing at a beach somewhere in the world, he didn't know where, and somebody was alone swimming, and he began to drown. He was in a strong current. And Kobus rushed in, rescued the man, saw everything like absolutely clear as if it's physically happening, got wet, got full of sand, dragged the man, and as the person was like, and breathing and out on the beach and wanting to thank Kobus was gone, back in the service. And I just quickly remembered that story, which is because Julianna's not talking about that. I'm thinking that maybe we're going to go into a phase where all of us will be experiencing things like that. You in a prayer time, or you shopping and you split, and there's a call for you to go do something. I just wanted to share that. I remembered it now for the first time in years.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
The piece that I'm writing to share tomorrow in my invitation speaks similar to like opening up. It opens us up to the mystical even more. And because that is the surrender, the level of surrender of just being able to be used and wherever it's asking us to flow without asking questions and just letting it go. And that continually of coming back to that embodiment of this love and of the water, it opens us up to that potential that the mystical holds for us. So that's such a beautiful thing to share here at the end. Thank you.
Good.
Okay. Well, Juliana, I want to ask you, I have one last question for you, but then I do want to ask you to just send me your Facebook pages and links and maybe drop it in the chat.
Yeah.
If possible. Otherwise, you can send it to me and I will just post it everywhere where people can connect with you. Where can they sign up to that newsletter that you're sending out tomorrow? Because I think we are all kind of curious about that.
Yes.
So let me have that. But 2-3 conversations back, we spoke to Amali about energy healing quite a while back. And what amazed, I think, most of us is that energy healing, you know, she does it around the world. She sits in a house in Sri Lanka and she is really doing remote work with energy healing across the world. Is that something that can be done with water as well? Or is it important that you need to be in the same space? How can we, is it something that can be done across the world?
Yeah, I think that it's very much the same thing. So that energy healing, that work, it is speaking into the water within us. So what's being impacted is that. And so this conversation that we're having and this connection, I think we'd use different pathways, each of us, to create that same harmony that offers that healing. And so I think so as well. I haven't done this yet, but a friend had this vision for me. And so it might be something that I'm going to offer in the next little bit here, but doing a virtual water session. So I've done a few talks on the way of the water on land and guiding people through meditation and into the work of the water. And we kind of just bathe in this space, but actually inviting everybody to come and before, after, like actually having like a basin where our feet can be in the water, or we can actually be as if, you know, without where we can be connected to the element in some way. So whether it's your feet in the water or, you know, you've got something near you that you can kind of just be engaging with the water. Maybe just a glass is fine, but creating something where you get to do. So that would be something that I might play with going forward. But as far as the being able to do the energy healing remotely is completely something that I've worked with and I work with. And so I haven't done it yet, but you're having me think now of like what it would be like to actually do a remote session with people where they are in the water. I don't have to be, but they could be in the water. So we could do a session together where you draw a bath or you go to a body of water where you're at, and we do this work together and guide that through. But yeah. Or I don't even have to be on the phone. We can just arrange a time where you know you're going to be there, and I will hold the space with you as well. And I will be a water holder, a water keeper with you there. And so I think there's so many ways that we can do this work, and each of us. And so my invitation to us would be follow that invitation or that call or that nudge and start creating those connections. So where if you are thinking, you know, I want to go down to the water, and for some reason this call came up and you're like, I'm going to call Juliana, or I'm just going to send her a message and let her know and invite her into this, ask her if she will engage in this with me, or there's somebody else on this call or whatever. I feel like that's how we continue to create these opportunities. We stop thinking and we just do the thing. Like we just go. We don't like pause, because imagine if like a water and the water's like, I don't know if I want to go yet. It's just going to like stop. It's going to keep finding its way. So,
well, I think most of us have some water with us, and if you don't, go grab a glass,
Yes.
Juliana, would you bless our water
Oh, yes, yes.
as we end this meeting? Thank you for your time today. I think we've learned so much.
Yes.
Thank you for opening our minds, especially mine, in just how to engage and how to love through water. And yeah,
Yes. And
I'll
send you the links after the call with anywhere that people can kind of connect in. But
yeah.
Oh, yes. So I just speak the deepest gratitude and love into this water that each of us have in front of us here now. We thank you. We thank you. We thank you for all of the ways that you have already brought to us all of the things that we are desiring to connect to, that you were here to guide us into just falling in love again and again and again, for the wholeness that you are and that you bring into us, and that the wholeness that we are in all of the ways that you support us to flow in the fullest expression of our divinity and our humanity. We just thank you. We thank you. We thank you. We speak into you the words of Ho'oponopono. We thank you and we ask you for that forgiveness. We say, I'm sorry for all of the ways in which we may have paused to move forward. And we just thank you with our deepest, deepest love and speak, I love you. I love you. I love you. We drink in this holy water.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
Well, thank you so much.
What a
Bless.
gift. Thank you all for sharing in this space with me and just allowing us to just sit in this beautiful baptism today. Thank you so much. It was really a pleasure and a gift.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Julianna. I'd like to
Yes.
ask, what part of Canada are you from?
I'm in Alberta, Edmonton, Alberta.
Are you?
Are you here?
I was in Manitoba, but moved here in 21. And so
Okay.
I'm in the US now, but I was just interested to know where you resided. That's great.
Yes. So yes. Well, thank you all. Please reach out. I'll share stuff with Marie and we can stay connected.
Yeah, I will share it everywhere. Thank you,
All right.
Juliana. And
Thank you.
all the South African friends, have a good night. And for the rest on this side of the world, have a blessed Monday. Yeah,
Wonderful.
talk soon.
Okay.
Okay.
See you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.